one of the things that I notice, especially in the martial arts world today, is when people hear the word martial arts, they tend to immediately think that, martial arts automatically means combatives and, real life self-defense or something like that. And in recent years, especially with the advent of like, social media and such like that, I've noticed that the terms have started to kind of separate in terms of like how they view and how people see one versus the other, like sport versus real self-defense. And I was wondering, like, in your experience, is there a difference between, or do you believe there's a difference between what we know as martial arts today and true self-defense?
Right. Okay. So yeah, semantics are one, aren't they? They're one that catches out. Semantics is the big issue. I mean, I hate it when somebody says to me something like "define martial arts," because my view on that is
My apologies.
I have an incredibly inclusive attitude towards that. To
Mm,
me, I can go quite far because saying, well, when you start looking at what's a dictionary definition of martial arts, where does it come back from? So yeah, I'm very open on my view. I can't give a definitive answer on
mm,
necessarily what is martial arts. However, okay, so self-defense. Now I say semantics. Very, very quickly. I
mm.
use the term self-protection. Okay. So
Okay.
okay. Now, no, I don't use. I also use the term self-defense, but I use them. Okay. So when I say self-protection, it is a umbrella term. Peter Constantine coined this distinction. So you've got self-protection, and within self-protection, you have your soft skills and your hard skills, right? So and that's self-protection teaching as a skill set, as an individual skill set. And within that, you have personal security, which is your soft
Mm.
skills. And I'd
Right.
extend that definition to meaning everything, including post-fight. I'd say it's pre-fight, post-fight, and it should underline the hard skills as well. So it's something that
Mm.
goes all the way through. So it's in self-protection terms, the personal security part of it is by far the most important part. I've had people say anything from the most respected people who I've trained with and worked with, who've been out in the field and write about this kind of thing. They'll say none of them has said less than 90% of your training in self-protection should be soft skills, and
Mm.
a good number of them will say closer to 95 to 98%. Peter Constantine himself says 98% is soft skills. If you get
Right.
the
Right.
soft skills right, in theory, you shouldn't have to do the hard skills. The soft skills is the most important part. So the other part of self-protection, the hard skills, is self-defense. So
That's
self-defense
the
for me is when we're
combatives.
discussing the hard skills. And now the
Mm.
problem with the term self-defense is that it isn't a term. Okay, it isn't actually. I mean, as it isn't it isn't a style. It isn't a system. Sorry, of course it's a term, but it's not. It's not a system. It's not a style. Okay, it's a legally recognized term. It's a legally
Mm.
recognized phrase. So you get involved in an altercation. Um, Police turn up. Okay,
Mm.
right. Okay, so what's happened here? If your defense is something like on the lines of, well, I was using karate at the time, or I was using
Mm.
kickboxing, or I was using, Muay Thai, Screamer, whatever. Okay. They go, that's very good, sir. I just want to know whether you hit him or not. Okay. It's kind of like that. It's just like, well, I was actually, as you'll notice, I was using the Tomaru branch. Make sure you've got that one down there. Exactly that particular branch. We're not listening to the Tomaru left side, not right side, guys. No, we don't want those ones there. Now, of this particular lineage, you imagine the police officer going, looking at you,
I
go
don't
saying,
care
okay,
about all that. Did you hit him or
yeah,
did
I
you?
really don't care. Did you hit this guy or not? It's just it. Okay. So if you're saying whatever, there's nothing certainly not in the UK law, certainly
Mm.
not in England, Wales, and in Scottish exposure law that says anything about a martial art. It says anything about boxing or as when you're using it as the term. I use this. I use. A lot of people. It always cracks me up when someone says they used a martial art. It's like they got it in their pocket. It's not a thing, is it? It's not a tangible entity. It's just and most of the people struggle to define exactly what they mean by that
Mm.
anyway. I mean, a term like karate is almost like saying athletics. They're so
Mm.
varied and there's so many different sort of schools of it. But anyway, the point being, self-defense is a legal term. So if you go, I know I use boxing on him. Oh, right. Okay. I use karate on him. Did you hit him? It was self-defense.
Right.
Oh, right. Okay. Now I'm interested. And that's the thing. Okay. So what you're saying here, this is a self-defense situation.
Mm-hmm.
And self-defense is, and again, because if you think about all those other martial arts, they immediately become very exclusatory. They all become very like their own thing. You say
Mm-hmm.
self-defense. Now that's a debate that we can all join in. You say self-defense, that can be somebody who has never thrown a punch in their life, has never thrown somebody in their life, has got zero interest in combative arts. Can hear that term? They can have an opinion on that. They can have a view on that. They can understand that. It's a legal term. So I always say that, yes, they're hard skills, but these are hard skills that you've got to be able to justify in front of 12 of your peers. So if you can say that, that's why it's very important to say that with self-defense. Now, is that then different? So if we look at it in that context, is that different between martial arts? Can martial arts be self-defense? Yes, it can. Okay, can self-defense be martial arts? Well, I'd argue that a lot of civilian-based systems of martial arts began as self-defense systems. If you look at the early days of karate and if you look at the early days of and therefore taekwondo, because there's a direct lineage link. And again, if you look at the link from karate to some of the Chinese styles and Okinawa tea and stuff like that, so Okinawa indigenous arts, what were they being taught for? Well, generally speaking, they're being taught as a system of self-protection, self-defense. Yeah, self-defense. And with self-protection as well, because again, you can listen to, if you read, a lot of the stuff on the, Funakoshi and Mabuni and a lot of people in the karate styles, when they were at schools, when they were describing, they had a lot of information on soft skills as well, about how to avoid conflicts, how to, how to de-escalate. They had their own little opinions on that kind of stuff. The stuff they loved doing, let's not kid ourselves. The stuff they liked doing was the physical stuff, but they made these strong points about avoiding fights and things like that. And that's so not avoiding, but also the elements connected to
trying to diffuse.
Diffuse and avoid and avert and all this kind of stuff, and and the philosophical place for it. And I appreciate that sometimes politics is fed in there, particularly when you see that in both China and Japan. When you look at different governments coming in, different political pressures, they've shaped martial arts. Whether we like it or not, we don't like. Politics is a difficult thing, of course, in discussing the martial arts world, and I appreciate it. Like to kick out of your discussions, but politics definitely shape martial arts. There's no doubt about it. I mean, a lot of schools had to survive by going to the politics of the time. So what are you doing? What are you doing, Mr. Cho? Well, I'm teaching. I'm teaching systems of how to hurt people and that. All right, so what are you going to do? You're going to form militias? You're going to go take over our government? No. Actually, they're for improving people. They're to make people feel better about themselves. It's about, okay. This is the kind of sort of, dialogue that goes along that shaped and helped a lot of styles, develop, and philosophers get involved and things like that. There's a lot of stuff around with it. But but so a lot of martial arts do start as self-protection systems or methods for self-defense. Not all, some of them at their absolute roots, they are probably combat sports, but they also become systems of self-defense. Boxing, after all, was called the noble art of self-defense. That was for a long time. That was its slogan throughout all the 19th century and into the 20th century. We even sometimes hear it now, the noble art of self-defense. That was just it. It was often, and prior to that, of course, you had a lot of the weapon arts were considered schools of self-defense. We had schools of self-defense across Europe, and they were teaching you how to use sword and dagger and things like that, because that was the methods of the time, right up, from the Renaissance era and prior to the medieval times. But so you kind of you do often find it at the root of it. What were they there for? So for me, if a system of self-protection is probably a system of civilian, it's not combatives, a system of civilian self-protection. That's what self-protection is. But for me, how I teach self-protection is I divide it up. I say I'm very service driven. So I nowadays, I don't run a club. I run a club from 2004 to 2014. I taught kickboxing prior to that as a sort of for a very unscrupulous boss, for about 4.5 years. So went into the wilderness, came out, did my 10 years teaching my own club my own way, and was very, very, very unsuccessful. Okay. I was not a club runner. I was a club runner. So I was rubbish rubbish at running a club, rubbish at trying to, try to do it the best way, trying to run my way. So in the end, I thought, what I am is I'm a PT, I'm a personal trainer. That's what I like to do. I like to teach seminars, I like to teach courses, and I like to help other teachers. Other teachers have come to me. I've now done like a teacher consultation thing as well. Now, not to teach them how to run their business, that's for sure. But I can provide them with extra information and how to cross train and how to bring other elements in and stuff like that, which I enjoy doing. So from 2014 onwards, I just did that personal training. And what I thought I'd do is I thought, screw trying to teach a system in my system. I wrote out a whole syllabus, made it sort of my system. I didn't want to call it a system. I like to call it approach. We didn't have any techniques listed in there. It was just more like activity based. The idea was like, I could bring you to one of my gradings, and the idea would be that you could see my students, and rather than be looking at them and going, is his position particularly correct, or is her position correct, you could transparently see that A, they could hit hard, B, they knew how to grapple and fight, C, that they had good self-awareness, they had good knowledge of basic safety principles when you talk to them. So it could be quite transparent when people come out and go, so yeah, whatever you're doing here is practical. I understand that. I understand how violence works, and so do these kids. I don't necessarily follow their system, but what I can say is transparently, they call these adults, what they can do. So that was kind of my idea to do that. It's maybe it's a bit hippie-ish, I don't know, but maybe it's circus-like, very vagabond-like. I don't know. I like to think being more punkish than hippie-ish, to be honest. But anyway, yeah. So we came out. So 2014. I went to PT, and I went, okay, I'm going to be service driven. So when that's it. So I say to people now, what do you want? So rather than saying to them, they don't come to me and go, but a lot of them do actually. They come to me, I'll do a martial art. I go, well, what do you want from this martial art? What is your purpose here? And maybe I can see if I can provide that for you. And maybe I can't. So at the moment, occasionally I'll get someone going, I'll do something that's very traditional, it's very connected to, a certain culture, a certain heritage, a certain historical thing. I'm going, that's wonderful, that's great. I'm really supportive. I know some fantastic traditional martial arts teachers who I believe teach practical martial arts, but are traditionalists as well. I don't do that. So that's not a service I can provide for you. Maybe if I have somebody who is more health orientated, I'll say, yeah, okay, yeah, we can do stuff that's based on fitness and health, and understand that's objective, but we'll use martial arts to help do that with you.
As the base,
understand the byproduct of this is not that you're going to be very effective as a fighter, or you're going to be very effective in a self-protection situation. If someone comes to me and says, I want self-protection, I want self-defense, then it becomes this becomes a first aid course. I compare it to first aid. That's my approach. I say to people, right, when you learn first aid, everybody turns up that first aid course. I guarantee you that the majority of them don't want to be paramedics, don't want to be surgeons. They want to come and they want to learn life-saving skills. They want that basic civilian day-to-day thing that they can do to save someone they love, or somebody maybe, or just a stranger, or anybody in their life. So they have got those skills in the workplace, at home, out and about. Maybe they'll do a specific first aid course, which is important as well. Likewise, you should be able to do with self-protection. It should be very individualized, So I teach self-protection like that. But here's the thing: it's limited as well, incredibly.
Right.
It should be limited. Realistically, the average person who's going to come in there and their job is not to work security. Their job is not to be in the military, not to be in the forces, not to be in a place where or not even being in an environment where they're regularly going to see interpersonal violence, just like that. Is it healthy for them to train every single day in some form of practical, form of fighting, that they're going to be doing that the whole time? And so to me, no, it's a 10-hour course with homework where you will come in, you will learn these basic skills that will be, I'd say the way I define whether self-defense is any good, because I get people who come to me all the time, they say, is this martial art good for self-defense? And my view is like, well, okay, what do you mean? I said, so first of all, I go, right, okay, if this guy's telling you teaching their self-protection, or if this woman's telling you teaching you self-protection, are they teaching the soft skills? Okay, that's the first thing I want to know. So if they're actually saying this is stuff that's going to be effective for you in real life, are they actually showing you soft skills? Are they telling you about attitude? Are they teaching you about situational awareness? Are they teaching you how to deal with the aftermath of the situation? A lot of people lose their lives after violent situation. They've survived the
Right.
actual situation, but the black dog inside them, the depression that can follow, the fear of the reprisals, the legal side of it all that kind of thing. That's what can kill them. You know what I mean? Those kind of things can kill them. So are they teaching all that side of stuff? Okay, when that stuff's cleared out of the way, I go, okay, yeah, but I want to, basically they're not asking that question. They're normally asking me, is this going to work? I'm doing a martial art and I really enjoy doing this martial art. And I want you to tell me, I want you to confirm for me that it's going to help me out if something kicks off and I get in a real fight. So I go, okay, right. Well, number one, does it teach preemption? Number two, is it proactive? And number three, is it pressure tested? And they're my three criteria for the hard skills. And the hard skills, they're the 3 Ps. That's what I do. Preemption, proactive, pressure tested, 3 Ps. If those three are there, then I'll say that, again, that's cool. Okay, as far as the hard skills are concerned, your club's doing the right thing, on that side of it. I'd say it's maybe not healthy to stay within that, for too long a period. Because again, when I get to people that do a 10-hour course with me on self-protection, I normally say to them, look, I'm fascinated with the topic. I find it really, really interesting. But my danger here is that if you keep coming to me week after week and we're working off the basis of what I've taught you here, we're going to do things that are impractical. We can't help ourselves because martial artists can't help themselves. That's why a self-protection system turns often into a martial art in the greatest sense of the word. That's when you start getting this other stuff coming in, because martial artists also start practicing with other martial artists, and you can't help it. You start responding to what they do, and so the art develops, and so the style develops, and you sometimes get something that's very, very beautiful, and you often do. But then that's the point when you have to say to yourself, well, that's the bigger picture. That's something else. Right. Okay, now that isn't the self-protection. So my view is like, as I say to my clients, I go, okay, what do you want to do now? I say, unless you've got an area that you're particularly concerned about, like edged weapon awareness or blunt weapon awareness stuff.
Right.
My advice here is not to continue the self-protection route. My advice here is now to pursue martial arts. Okay. And now we don't have to get wound up in all the whole, but in real life I do this, and in real life I do that, and all this kind of thing. We don't have to worry about that. We can go off now without those confinements, without those trappings. We can go then straight away to say, okay, what do you want to do? Okay, well, I wasn't very confident in my hands. Let's box. Let's do a boxing course. Let's do boxing. Let's get boxing. Why? Because boxing is, as far as many arts are concerned, it's the art that is invested the most in developing your punches. It's an art that excludes everything else to punching. There are other elements, but you know what I mean. It's all about punching, punching full contact, and every country does it. And so much money's piled into it, and your average boxing gym is not interested in getting numbers in that class. They're interested in developing better fighters in the ring. That's where the money comes from, the average boxing gym, which creates a unique dynamic that is separate to most martial arts classes.
Right.
Most martial arts classes are developed by, well, we need to get as many people as we can, or we need to get them through grade. Sometimes it's very retail orientated. We need to buy the equipment, we need to get the gradings. Boxing doesn't care about that. Boxing is about, okay, right, he's good in the ring, or she's good in the ring. Okay, right, that's great. Okay, well, we're going to get them into competitions. Okay, we want them to win. The more competitions they win, the more chances we're going to get people that can turn pro. When they turn pro, then we can make, that makes the money. So boxing is orientated towards developing better fighters in the ring. So that has its own thing. Footwork is phenomenal. It's, obviously, I think it's probably got, some of the most sophisticated footwork you can find in a combative sense, as far as boxing.
Very much so.
So you'll have that, yeah, absolutely. And boxers just know it, and just from my background, seeing so many good boxers. So boxing is great, and within boxing, isn't it? It's talk about diving deep. My favorite boxer of all time is Archie Moore, who I think is the martial artist. I love Archie Moore. Just phenomenal. Everything. I love it. When one of the few people as well that, I like to separate art from artists, but, so much of his stuff is a personality. And I hear about his daughter when she gets interviewed, and that fabulous person. Really, 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 for me, he's the martial artist boxer. So I love Archie Moore. But I love a lot of the old boxers and a lot of the other systems. I love the whole background, but also the development of the styles are great. The outboxers, the swarmers, the sluggers, the boxer punchers, Sugar Ray Robinson. Who's not interested in combat and can't love Sugar Ray Robinson? Do you know what I mean? It's like, obviously Muhammad Ali almost goes without saying, you know what I mean?
It's like,
yeah.
I love hearing about everyone's different favorites, because it's like, it really shows like different facets of of the person that I'm speaking with, or
Yeah.
just like, your personality. It's like it's very interesting.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, I do things like learn from the fights from the services I actually deliver, where people actually just watch fights with me, and we go through an analysis of the fight and things like that, and we talk about the history, and that's, that's because I find that interesting too. But anyway, here's the view. So you go off and do your boxing, you enjoy the boxing, and maybe you go, okay, I want to stay with boxing. It's not, and if people stay boxing too long, my view is like, well, go to a boxing coach, go to a boxing gym, because I teach boxing as a cross-training discipline. I'm not going to pretend you're going to get the best boxing in the world here from me.
Right,
but,
right. It's a framework.
Yeah, exactly. It's my attribute training. But so, okay, so let's say you go, okay, well, and this is an interesting journey for some people. So this line, so you see yourself and say, well, okay, well, maybe there's a line here. And the line is, maybe your line is, so what's your foundation system? Is it Chinese martial arts?
Oh yeah, it's Chinese Sanda and Wing Chun with
Sanda. Yeah, Sanda, brilliant. Yeah, no. That's one of the combat sports I haven't really done, and I really wish I had, and I really wanted to experience that. Fantastic. And Wing Chun, okay, cool. Yeah, I know a lot of great Wing Chun guys.
It's hit the mainstream a lot nowadays.
Yeah. So something to do with some guy came over from Hong Kong and made a few movies or something. And that, I don't know if you've ever heard of him.
I think his name was Ip Man. I think.
Definitely Ip Man. Yeah, exactly.
Portraying this really famous guy, Bruce Lee.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, so you've got this. Okay, so I see this great line. So let's say whatever your foundational system is. Maybe your foundational system is Wing Chun then. Okay, for example. Okay, so Sanda's a great one to use actually for this. Sanda actually is a great one for this analogy. Okay, let's say it's Sanda. Okay, so let's say you're learning Sanda. Okay, and you're saying, okay, I want to invite cross training to our Sanda gym. Why? Because I want my students to, my fighters to have a broader experience here. So let's do isolated boxing training, and we're going to learn boxing in not boxing from a Sanda perspective. We're going to learn boxing. Okay, we're going to learn boxing. That's when we do that, because there's, as you know, how you box when you box and how you use boxing techniques in Sanda are very, very, very different. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, cool. So your view would like, okay, let's do that. So the view is then, but then you then go back to your line. Okay, if you like your base style or whatever it is you're doing. So maybe it's self-protection. Maybe it's Sanda. Okay, so if it's self-protection, the view is that, okay, right, now we're going back to self-protection. We're looking at our preemptive strike. So maybe using a palm strike as a preemptive strike, should we say. Okay, so now, how has training in boxing improved that straight palm strike? How has it now improved that hook? So rather than going into the self-protection and saying, I'm going to weld on those techniques, it's another mistake I see with a lot of cross trainers do. They try to stitch on or weld on techniques. They try to go and they think, I remember seeing one club who taught his class boxing techniques throughout all the punching techniques of his system, just to teach people Western boxing techniques just because he thought they were the best. And I'm going, you're missing the point. It's not the boxing techniques that is going to help your students. Yeah, it's immersing themselves in the boxing culture, is immerse himself in the culture of learning how to box with other boxers and learning that part of it all. Don't throw out your system. There's a reason why those strikes are in there. Go back to those strikes now and see how that cross-training experience has enhanced your base style. So with Sanda, that would be a classic example. You'd go straight back to Sanda and you go, okay, well, I've got to, I don't want to be trying to adapt this boxing to Sanda. I'm going to go back to my Sanda as I did my Sanda. But oh my God, suddenly my right cross is amazing. You know what I mean? Oh my God, suddenly my hook is like, it's tighter. Do you get what I'm saying? Is that yeah.
Most definitely.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the same thing with the self-protection. It's the same thing. You teach people ground fighting, they submission grappling, for example. You're not saying go into self-defense. Well, okay, all these submission grappling moves, what I expect you to be able to do, and passing guards got a direct relevance or something like that. No. What you've learned is how to move on the ground. What you've learned is how to not be scared of the ground. How you've learned is how to position yourself better and things like that. Wrestling, in many ways, one of the best things you can learn from wrestling, such a solid style. I say wrestling, freestyle, Greco-Roman, folk styles, whatever, collegiate. The best thing you can get from that is takedown defense. takedown defense. Never mind the
Mm.
throws. Never mind takedown defense and positioning. Teaching you'll now have a great base for stopping somebody from taking you
Right.
down. So in the
Hmm.
UK, it might be a rugby player. It might be a football player over in the US.
Oh.
It might be. I mean, how many of those? Yeah, are going to take you down? Exactly. But if you've done some at least rudimentary training
And built
in
those
wrestling,
attributes.
you've got a
Right.
better chance of being able to sort of understand. And as I said, it's not the specific techniques; it's the familiarity, it's the tactile awareness that you get with grappling. That's not the literal techniques necessarily, but it's just now you're familiar. Wing Chun's a wonderful example of that. So you think about the Chi Sao, and then think about Greco-Roman wrestling and fighting for grips, and how could that lend to it? You know what I mean? How could that lend to it, especially as you turn it into a type of free flow sparring out? It actually break out of Chi Sao when you do that kind of thing. That tactile awareness. I've often thought, I've seen some people do that as well, and they kind of like look to Greco-Roman and some of the Wing Chun Chi Sao.
I mean, I've noticed that with a lot of like a lot of the blended schools that tend to use like Wing Chun concepts, they always tend to lead it into like jujitsu. They always tend to lead it into some type of like wrestling or try to like use it as a bridge.
Yeah. Yes.
And that's
sure.
interesting to do considering Wing Chun deals a lot with bridging. So
yes. Yeah, exactly. So again, that's to me, and maybe some of it doesn't help, and so, but again, that's all part of that understanding. It's all about, and that's often the thing. It's like teach someone doing MMA, for example, they've got to be. A lot of it's like going to university because you're going, well, okay, well, guess what? Things that you couldn't do in Muay Thai, for example, Muay Thai, you can't really have a bladed stance like you would have in boxing because you're going to get that front leg kick to pieces. Right, I mean, as soon as a Nakamura loves seeing a boxer when they come into that bladed stance, you can almost see them salivate, can't they? With that front leg, it's going to be like, okay,
so this is what's going to happen.
This is all going to be about kicking that leg, everything about that, or even a wrestler, if you like, so that's self-protection and martial arts. Yes, the two converge. Yes, the two can overlap, but essentially, I think self-protection should be taught within its own sort of restricted bubble, so to speak. You can always keep learning, you can always keep updating the information, but certainly the physical side of it must be kept limited, and you use the experiences from cross-training later on to enhance that. But it still needs to be something where you feel like when you've taught somebody who's got no training at all, no knowledge at all of any sort of experience of interpersonal violence, you feel like, okay, I've sent somebody back out into the world where they've got a better chance of avoiding or handling a violent situation. That's the reason why evasion skills are so important, and that all comes out of my children's self-protection stuff.